Satsang. Today we're going to explore seeing deeper than conditioned mind. The reason for that also because I received quite a few emails, and one particular one represents them all. So this is what we're going to be dealing with, but we'll go deeper. I would love your participation when we're digging deep, okay? Now, one particular person asked, which was very similar to about 10 others. He said, I keep inwardly attacking myself, and I really can't seem to stop it. The more I try to stop, the more attack happens and the more tightly I get wound up. I know that it's all an illusion, but every time I try to start working on it and moving back to what's real, again, more and more attack. I'm really not sure how to deal with this. Okay, so we're going to the conditioning. The first point is this, that when this begins to happen, there is nothing to fix and nothing to control here. In fact, the more you fight it, the more you try to change it, the worse it gets. And we're going to see why. So this is very important because the busy mind is really the greatest conflict, isn't it, that we have. But let's understand, conditioning starts very early in life. You know, you can see it this way, how conditioning starts. This is just an example, okay? Think of a space. You are born like you're a child, innocent, okay? So this is a basket. So then you're given a name. So they say, Burt, Inez, you see, and the child begins to identify with that name, which is normal and natural because that's part of the human survival, okay, and evolution. So it begins to identify with the name. Now when you identify with the name, immediately you say, oh, so that's who I am, you see, and then it begins to see that it has parents or siblings and begins to feel a little bit of separation, and that's normal and natural. Then later on what happens is when it starts to walk, it starts to develop what is called an ego, because at that point you identify with the body. So there's more stuff that's going into the basket, you at this point. So this is what the conditioning does. Now, at the point about 3 years of age or so, the child begins to absorb through osmosis the vibrations and the energies that are in the family. So even if parents don't fight, but they hold negative thoughts or feelings of failure or feelings of limitation, or they say this is wrong or this is not right or we shouldn't be doing this or this is a sin, etc., etc., all that goes into that basket of that child, and it builds its foundation of belief system. By the time the child is 6 years old, it is done for this whole lifetime. And there are many Enneagram tests. You've heard of Enneagrams? Enneagram types? Okay, so by the time you're 6 years old, you've already formed your Enneagram type. This is also inevitable. But you might say, are we stuck? Oh no, we're not stuck. Because through the realization of your true nature, excuse me, you transcend all that. Because who you are has nothing to do with conditioning. But conditioning is very, very powerful because that's all you know. You see, you are a human being. We know that, right? Now the human is easily conditioned. Believes in everything that is happening around it. The being is always pure, it's always silent. It's always here, it's always now. You see, in fact, the being itself is what is called love. And love is what it's all about. So when we talk about conditioning, what is it in simple terms? What can we call conditioning? What does it do to us?
It shapes.
Yeah?
It shapes our behavior.
It shapes our behavior completely, but there's something else that is common in all conditioning. that creates something very few people know about.
Separates us from everyone else.
It separates us. Yes, there's something even more that is in it all the time.
It
Oh,
burdens us.
Oh, yes.
We believe that it's true.
Oh yeah, we're completely we're convinced it is true. Yes,
Yeah.
we believe that this is who we are. Okay, what the statement is that covers all conditioning is called fear of love. Okay, now the fear of love happens this way. You see, when you're young, you're born as a being. When a child smiles at 1 year of age, it steals your heart with its innocence and beauty and joy. Okay, that's the being expressing through the child. But what happens is that our nature is being, therefore it wants freedom. It wants to be itself. It doesn't want to be controlled. But because of the way we live, you know, most all countries and everything else, we're conditioned by tradition, religion, you know, parental training, education, everything else, do's, don'ts, harm, good, bad. That goes into it that creates so much limitation that the child grows up feeling hampered. As a matter of fact, by the time they reach 12 or 13, they usually rebel, you know, and because that's part of wanting freedom. So now, because you want freedom, because your nature is being, therefore you hate to be controlled. When you hate to be controlled, you make sure that you're going to be in control so that you don't lose control and get controlled. Are you with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
So this becomes the dynamic, the threesome of control. And this is what starts the whole pain. So this man who wrote this is very much caught in this part. He wants to control himself and get rid of that. Why is it attacking me? And the more he says, why is it attacking me, the more it attacks him, because it is self-imposed. See, there's another thing that happens when we are children, is that when our parents fight or they are negative or things are not going well, we blame ourselves. We think it's our fault. Did you know that a child actually takes responsibility for the feelings of its parents? You really did. You know, I believe that when I was a kid. So this is a very natural outcome. Now, the fear of love always shows up in relationships. And now we're moving into the fourth dimension, you see, because the shift in consciousness is happening so fast. So, and because of moving fast, then all the stuff that hasn't been resolved is rising to the surface to be met, you see? So all the stuff that we haven't resolved in our childhood and everything else is coming to the surface. So there's a lot of breakup, there's a lot of relationship problems, there's the letters I keep getting, I still get about 100 a day, you know, throughout the day, you know, so I have to spare my time answering stuff. But they follow a pattern, and the pattern is very similar to this gentleman's question. Now, the fear of love is behind all relationship problems, okay? For example, let's say you've been brought up to believe, too many don'ts, too many, don't do this, don't do that, be good, right? What happens? Then you meet a man, I'm talking a man, a woman or a man, but you meet a man and he says to you, oh, I love you so much, And he repeats it over and over again. Now, the woman who was with him, she wants love. Everybody wants love, everybody is seeking love. But what happens when she starts getting the man saying, I love you, I love you, I love you? Yeah.
She'll try to sabotage it.
That's exactly the point. She will try to sabotage it. One, she's feeling controlled, she's feeling possessed, she's feeling owned, she's feeling, right? Right. So this is what starts happening, and then runs away, which is sabotages the love. Okay. Also, she doesn't love herself enough to actually believe totally that somebody could love her. You see? So this is the dynamic that happens in relationships. So this is, what is it that we're seeking all the time? What is it we're seeking all the time?
Ourselves.
Right, ourselves, which is love, which is being. That's beautiful. Right, we're seeking ourselves all the time, which is love, which is being. Being is all that we truly are. When we are being, for example, you were talking about the choir. You see, now at that moment of choir, there is a beautiful feeling of silence, right? A feeling of being here. So we get many moments when we are in love, okay? But not necessarily with a person, but in love. You're dancing and or you love the music, or you're writing a poem, or it doesn't matter what it is. There's a moment when you're in love. Those are your best moments. That is called the love feeling surfacing. So if we were to ask ourselves, though, what is love? Because that's all we ever want, and that's all we really are. What is love, really? Now, there's no definition of love, because love is nothingness, it's emptiness. You cannot define love. But there is one thing that you can begin to understand it somewhat, and it's called now. Now is love. This moment is love. When you are in this moment, you are in love. But you might say, but I got so many problems in the now. No, no, they are not in the now. They are conditioned that are coming and surfacing from the past. See, for example, nowadays, what has happened? Technology has advanced by leaps and bounds. All young people and even older people carry an iPhone or something like that, and they're always checking it. Okay, now that in a way is a way to actually keep so busy that you're never in the now. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder what, you see, and you're never in the moment. So that becomes such a habit that you get caught in it, that you lose all perspective of who you are. You see, so so love is this moment itself. You see, and the moment, but the average person, like Asajola, the founder of psychosynthesis, said, over 95% of our energy is spent protecting, defending, and maintaining our self-image, and it's nothing more than a self-image, an ego. Okay, so this means that less than 5% are we present. But even when we get present, what happens? There's something else that happens. You become present, you're making love, you're very happy, you're singing, you're dancing, it doesn't matter. You're in the moment. When you are in the moment, you're now. So you're feeling good, you're feeling love. But then what happens when it's over? The past you haven't dealt with starts raising doubts about the good time that you had. Maybe he's controlling me. Maybe he's using me, or vice versa. You see what I mean? So this is what fear of love starts doing, because we don't live in the moment. You know, there's a story about a man it's very, very beautiful, and he passed away not so long ago. When he was 40, he built an empire. And he had a yacht, he had an incredible penthouse, he had everything money could buy. But by the time in his 40s, he went to the doctor feeling lousy. And the doctor was aghast. He said, my God, he said, if you walk up the stairs, you could collapse and die. That's how weak you are. That's how fragile you've become with your stress and worry. And he said, well, what can I do, doctor? He said, well, for now, I'd like you just to sit. You know, and if the pain gets too bad, because his heart was very weak, he says, you've got to sit all the time in your penthouse, look out the window, and just be silent, you know, and relax. But he didn't know what to do. Being a businessman, he likes to keep active, like to do, you know. So therefore, as he was spending time looking out the window, and he had opium pills ready in case pain strikes, but his choice was he'll have those pills to kill him rather than keep on living that way. But then he asked, what is life all about? You know, he asked, you know, he looked out through that bay window of his penthouse. Is it money? Is it power? He says, nothing means anything anymore. I feel finished, but I've got to find out what is my purpose here? What am I doing? So then, he had lots of time and he started to reminisce about all the women that he went out with and dated. And he said there were many women who loved him. And he said it was a wonderful feeling to be loved. And then it came to him. The best time he ever had was not when he was loved. It was when he fell in love and loved. He said because something in him became alive, and in that giving he understood somewhat what love is. And then he understood love, and to make a long story short, he lived to the age of about 89 or so. His name is Lester Levinson, and he's the founder of Sedona Method. You're probably familiar with this. Anyway, but what he discovered is that if you learn to release the ego, the conditioning, all you are left with is love. And love has nothing to do with being loved, but loving. Because love is a giving, it's not a taking. You see? It gives of itself. Okay, now one important thing to start getting in touch with your fear of love, which is very, very common, and it's, in fact, you'll find that 95% or more of all breakups is done by fear of love, you see. What is so important is to get in touch with your living question. This is how you get in touch with the major fullness of your conditioning. See, we're all conditioned, okay? There isn't one human being that is not conditioned, okay? But the beautiful thing is that you're not that. And you don't need to overcome it. You need to understand it. You see, because it's all seeking of love. All of it. All of it. You see, it doesn't matter what's anxiety or depression or anger or dissatisfaction or whatever. It is all a seeking of love, which is seeking yourself, like you said. So, but what has happened to us through our individual upbringing, childhood, nationality, whatever, is that we have developed a living question. Now, it's called living because it lives in you all the time. Whether you're conscious of it or not, it's there all the time. It is a question, not because there is a question mark behind it, but it is a statement that you repeat inside yourself unconsciously, but it's a question unanswered. It's something that is not yet resolved, you see? So, this living question has, the most common living question is, I am not good enough. Another question is, I am missing something. Another living question is, I think I am bad, Another living question could be, I'm unlovable. Another living question could be, I don't deserve love. But you don't say these to yourself. You don't say it. You don't even know you're thinking it. But the moment you become aware of it, you see, you start to break free. And that is the important thing. So when you get in touch with this living question, because everybody has living question. I've done hypnotherapy for over 30 years. And everybody that came to see me, once we hit upon that living question, a healing started, you see. So this is very important. Now, how do we start healing? Okay. Do you know your living question, anybody? You do, eh? Okay. Yeah. When you know your living question, that's already quite a step ahead. You see. The next step is to see that it's not you. It's not you. It is a need for love. Okay, in whatever form it takes. So there are 3 things that you can do to heal the conditioning. And these are very practical. Number 1, acknowledge the fear. Now, how do you acknowledge it? I was doing a Skype session with a woman who's become terribly afraid of death. And all of a sudden it just happened, And at one point she thought that she had cancer. She might have, I don't know. but we didn't go into it. But she became very much afraid of dying. So we had to discuss it at length, you see. And I said, why don't you acknowledge it right now? And she said, but I'm acknowledging to you, Burt. You know, I am saying that I'm afraid of death. And I said, no. I said, stand up straight. I said, I am afraid of death. I said, say it. And then I asked her to say it again, and again, and again, and again, about a dozen times. But by the time the dozen times came on, she started to laugh. Okay? Because the moment you acknowledge your fear, you release that pressure that was inside you. And especially if you say it the way you felt it. You see? So there's a release. Now the moment there is a release, the next step, because there are 3 steps, the next step is to accept it. To accept it fully, because there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? Just like this man is talking, he wants to control it. Okay? He wants to get rid of it. Don't get rid of it. It's a lesson to be learned. Everything that is happening, all conditioning, is a part of what we have to look at. You see? Because it leads us back to love. And love is not something you're going to gain. It's not something you're going to achieve. It is who you are. This moment. Because you are being. You are now. You're always now, right? And now is eternal. There isn't 2 moments in time. Now is always. So that's why love is eternal, when you realize it. So then to accept that it's okay to have that fear. And then the third one is the most important of all. Okay? See the love in it. Now how do you see love in fearing death? Can I have some feedback here? Now she was afraid of death, but everything is a seeking of love.
With the understanding is the love. The understanding of the fear of death is the love.
That's true. But how is it love itself? The fear of death. Yeah.
That you love yourself while you're feeling that way?
Okay, that's one way, but it itself, the very fear itself is love being misinterpreted. Remember that everything that comes through us, we are living embodiments of God. We are oneness. God is love, okay? Okay, it's not an entity up there. So the being itself is love. You are that love. Okay? So everything that you do or fear is all coming from this. But it gets twisted, it gets misinterpreted. You see, and it becomes a need rather than an expression of. So how is fear of death a seeking of love? Feel it.
Well, death itself is like a dissolution of the separate self, yes. It's a dissolution of the ego. So it's almost like being absorbed back into love. So when it's misinterpreted and seen like from a separate standpoint, it feels like I'm being destroyed. It feels like, you know, something's being taken away. When in essence, it's almost like love is calling you.
That's right. So you can see it that way. Yeah, that's good. That's good. We see, the fear of death is, again, the thought that we are going to be dissolved, we are going to be no more. You cannot be no more because you never were. Now that is the biggest realization. If I were to tell you what changed me, in the year 2000 when I woke up, so to speak, it was this, that there is no birth. But that's the beautiful thing, because I am not even living and I don't have a life. I am life. I am life itself. Are you with me so far? So in other words, you have never, you're not really existing as you think you are. You are consciousness appearing as Inez, for example. Okay? And as Burt. So in essence, you are this now. And this now, how can it end? How can it die? How can now die? Feel it. Now. Is there an exit to now? Is there an end to now? When anything happened yesterday, wasn't it now when it happened? And what happens in the future, isn't it now when it does happen in the future? And there's no future and no past? It's relative. So now is forever, isn't it?
Fear is future. Future is an illusion.
Very good. Yeah. Fear comes into a fear of the future. What's going to happen? Anxiety. I wonder what's going to happen. You see? Okay, so now that, in brief, that's all about conditioning. I'm laughing because I would like now to get some feedback from what you have heard. You know, if you understood it all, or if you have any questions, or maybe we can attack it from a different point of view. And incidentally, before we do that, in the meantime, think about what you're going to say or explore. I got another one here, and she said the following. She said, I know that love is not something. I am as consciousness. I lived this truth for 1.5 years. I was love in that year and didn't need love from anyone, and just served life full of love and joy. That's why what I'm writing you is so strange. Being back in my mind and body, like I failed, and I know this in my mind, speaking and not consciousness, become consciousness can never fail. So I am confused. Okay, what she's saying here, maybe her English is not perfect, but what she's saying here is that she lived a 1.5 years of total bliss, love, joy, and she felt that she was living in truth. And now she said she lost it all. It's all gone. She's confused. How did this happen?
You're self-conscious.
Can we go into it? Can you find out what actually happened?
Well, all of those things seem to be thoughts. So when she felt that she was living that way, she was thinking about the fact that she was living that way, and
right. And she had no challenges. She had no relationship. You see? If you have no relationship, you don't have problems. It is when you have a relationship that you have challenges, because relationships are necessary. You learn more from relationships than anything or anywhere else. Because when you live with another or you love another, this is how you learn to give love. You see, and all the time you see that all the fighting and everything is because you don't want to give that love, you want to get it. You see? Everybody is seeking a lover. You see it in the papers, you see it now on the internet, everybody is looking for love. Okay? But you don't see anyone, I want someone to love. I don't care whether they love me or not. You won't hear it. It just kind of comes from the human part of us. You see? But that's what actually happens in a relationship. Now, she didn't have a relationship. Everything was going okay for that time. But then she wasn't challenged. She wasn't tested. You see? And then we find that when we are comfortable, yes, you know, you're comfortable, you're earning enough, you have a good job, you know, and things are going fine. At the moment, you think, oh, I got it made. I'm at peace. I'm okay. But you see, you don't know whether you're awakened or not until you're being tested, until you reach a challenge and you lose something precious and you still have that love. You see, that's when you know that it's stable and unchanging. You see, so this is what happens, and that question also was a very common one. People say, oh, I had a period when I was awakened and now I regressed. What happened? No, you don't regress. If you realize the truth, how can you regress? If you realize who you are, how can you lose that? You realized it. You know it for a fact. It's truth. How can you lose that? You cannot lose it. You see? Oh, you might have moments of anger or resentment or maybe even grieve or miss someone, you know, or a relationship breaks up and you feel sadness. Oh, that's all natural and normal. But the peace is never touched, because that's what being is, you see? Okay, so can we discuss maybe your living question, or maybe any other thing that you want to discuss about conditioning? Yeah.
You're talking about these relationships, so many of these relationships ending, and so I would think that in that ending there's a lot of judgment and resentment.
Yeah.
So is that all a form of rejection?
Yes.
It would have to
It's
be.
all part of that fear of rejection, which is fear of love. It all
But,
comes back to the same thing.
but if you're judging and out there, you're actually rejecting yourself.
Absolutely.
So
All
that's-
fear of love is self-sabotage. Right. But it causes you to blame and project outwardly out there. You see? You always blame another for the way you feel because it's your way to escape. The mind wants to escape from pain. It wants to manipulate it, fix it, get rid of it, throw it away.
How-
It doesn't want to look at it and learn from it.
Well, how could you actually know that it's not out there? Like that's some.
If you don't know it's out there, then you have to come to Satsang and listen to Burt.
Well, I
And
think,
if-
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
I was going to say, even the love that we think is out there, it's not out there. It's within.
Beautiful.
So when we.
That's right.
So that's why it's important to give it, because
That's
it
right.
then
And the more you give it,
the more you feel
the
it.
more you,
Yeah.
the more you feel it, the more you expand. Right. Because you are love. Love is always there. So it is through giving that the richness comes. You see? Yeah.
There's something though too about loving could be a way of getting.
Well, yeah, you get a
Instead-
lot when
instead
you
of
when you
loving.
when you love someone and they return it. My goodness. Phew,
No,
That's,
but I guess
that's beautiful.
what I'm thinking about is that there could be a real need for love in your loving.
Oh yes,
Like
yes. There,
Like
there,
a
there,
desperation.
there
or
could
Yeah.
there
like
could
a-
be, yeah. But the point is that when you become aware of it, that very awareness itself strengthens that love. See, the thing is, we go back again to that word, to that magical word. Our nature is being. Being is awareness, pure awareness. Okay? The more aware you are, how everything is love. Everything is love. There's nothing but love. Really, as a matter of fact, if you say, you understand love? You know, you don't need to come to satsang or do anything anymore. That's it. Because love is what it's all about. And, you know, we've had religions throughout history. In the third dimensional, you know, religions, for example, they always taught you that God is out there, up in the sky, and you pray to God. You see? And even the Bible says, I am that I am, which means the I am of you is God. It is the being that you are, you see? Now you might say, then you pray to yourself. No, praying is closing the gap. Okay, you know what I mean by closing the gap? Prayer is very beautiful and very powerful, and so is meditation. See, what they do is there is a gap. There is the human and the being. The human identifies with itself and oftentimes forgets the being. But when it prays to the being that it is, it closes the gap and you are one with yourself, called silence, called inner knowing. Do you understand? So praying is closing the gap. It is not praying to yourself per se as you are, but in that prayer you forget yourself and you enter the I am that you really are, and then you feel the blessing from that. You see, that's how incidentally prayers are answered. They're answered all the time. But because we think we are human trying to get something, then prayers seem that they're not being answered. But there's never a time when you ask and not receive. But you have to understand what that means too, you see? And it's closing the gap between the human and the being. And so is meditation. Now, praying is talking to, you see, from your heart. Meditation is listening, is tuning in. But both close the gap, you see, to your true being. And and you said something beautiful right from the start, and you said we're always looking after ourselves. We're always looking to, searching ourselves, seeking ourselves, until you find that you're much greater than you thought you were. You're more than just an individual. You are being, you see? Yeah.